Faulkner, host of Kennedy on Fox Business, Kennedy, Republican strategist and Fox News contributor Lisa Booth, and today's #OneLuckyGuy. We welcome back the anchor of Fox News Sunday, Chris Wallace, who will be a big part of Fox News' election coverage tomorrow night. And Chris, remember, you are outnumbered in the first time we have you back since you moderated that spectacular debate.
Well, thank you. I graduated. I did well there, so you guys invited me back. Happy to be here.
Always love having you.
All right, it is a busy day, and here we go. Let's begin. Less than 24 hours now before the polls open, the latest twist rocking the campaign. FBI Director James Comey announcing that after reviewing newly discovered Hillary Clinton emails, the Bureau would not change the conclusion it reached this summer to not recommend charges. A furious Donald Trump blasting the decision, saying a, quote, rigged system is protecting Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton is guilty. She knows it. The FBI knows it. People know it. And now it's up to the American people to deliver justice at the ballot. Look, we are going to deliver justice the way justice used to be in this country, at the ballot box on November 8th.
And it's not just Republicans who are unhappy with Director Comey. Top Democrats slamming the FBI director for his letter to lawmakers 10 days ago, announcing that his agency was taking another look at Hillary's email scandal. The House Minority Leader, Nancy Pelosi, saying, quote, while the original letter allowed days of innuendo and falsehood by Republicans desperate to divert attention from themselves, the FBI's swift and thorough review should finally close the door on this Republican sideshow. Is the door closed? Where are we at with this, Chris Wallace?
Well, I don't think the door is closed in the sense that it'll continue to be a conversation over the next 24 hours. And my guess is, regardless of whether Hillary Clinton wins or loses over weeks to come, I have to say I've changed on the whole Comey thing. I thought when he made his announcement in July that, and you can argue whether it was right or wrong, but that he was not going to press for a criminal indictment, but in effect his speech was going to be a legal indictment, that seemed to me to be a fairly satisfactory answer. Now looking back on it, I think he should have shut his mouth. I think they just should have put out an announcement. The investigation is closed. There's no criminal action. He shouldn't have testified before Congress. If he hadn't testified before Congress, he wouldn't have felt the obligation to make this announcement 10 days ago. Then he wouldn't have felt the obligation to make another announcement. I think that criminal prosecutors should be not seen and not heard, and he became much too much of a political player in this whole thing, and that isn't what the FBI director is supposed to be.
And now we're left wondering what impact this is going to have on the race, just hours away from Americans heading to the polls.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a one-man Shakespearean tragedy. And James Comey has induced the kind of mood swings that you only see in bipolar people who have been institutionalized. Truly, you know, at one moment, July 5th, he's a hero to the left. He's a savior. He's a man of great integrity. And then on October 28th, he's a demon. He's a villain. He's politicized the entire process. And now the game is rigged for the other side. And, you know, and you've, of course, had Republicans coming out in congratulatory tones, thankful that the FBI director was able to stand up and do what's right. Now, meanwhile, you had agnostic observers like Judge Andrew Napolitano saying in both those instances, he really should have shut his mouth. Yeah. And, you know, you're wondering, as the third part of perhaps this four-act play as it's coming to a close, what was he thinking in the first place?
Well, and what does this get you now, saying that there were 650,000 emails, right? We know that they didn't, I mean, I don't know. Could they really have read them? I'm thinking an algorithm gets you the ones that are to and from Hillary Clinton, which is precisely what James Comey says was looked at, particularly, not all of them. So what does it get you to make a statement before you've actually done that homework when it was only going to take you a couple days anyway?
Well, to make the original statement on October 28th.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, why even do that if you
well, because he had gotten a little bit pregnant, because he had
you can't get a little bit pregnant. But these things I know about.
Well, I have 6 children, so I do too.
Yes, how is that possible?
But the point is that because he had testified before Congress and because he had answered this hypothetical question, if you got new and substantial information, would you reopen the investigation? He felt that he was obligated to come forward. He shouldn't have come forward. One other point I want to just quickly make about this. Ultimately, the responsibility is Hillary Clinton's. If Hillary Clinton hadn't made the decision to use the email server, she's the one who brought it into the political campaign. And we see from the WikiLeaks emails that wonderful exchange by Neera Tanden, the truth teller in this whole deal, who says when it came out in March of 2015, why on earth didn't they get this out 18 months ago? And she answers her own question, because they thought they could get away with it.
Yeah, and she also wondered whose idea this was in the first place, and said that they should be drawn and quartered.
Well, and too, I mean, what we found out from some of the most recent WikiLeaks information is that Cheryl Mills questioned if Hillary Clinton should have even run in the first place. Obviously, we know why. And looking at this politically, I mean, it has impacted the race, because Donald Trump was able to pick up some pretty significant headwinds over the past week. And what I think with the FBI's recent information that has surfaced, I think this sort of thwarts some of that momentum heading into Election Day for Donald Trump, because when you look at some of these really true toss-up states like New Hampshire, where you have 0.6% differentiating between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, North Carolina 1.4%, Nevada 1.5%. Everything matters right now.
1 percentage point according to the Real
so everything matters right now.
I would say this because, Chris, you and I had just a couple of minutes to talk this morning before the show, and one thing that you said that made an impression on me was that, you know, Hillary Clinton's numbers had already started to kind of plateau. You used a different word, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I mean, it was not on that steep dive.
No, I think it said stabilized.
Stabilized.
And that's what it was. But I think Lisa's right to the extent that Trump was really in danger of a double-digit defeat. I mean, he was 10, 12 points down, and suddenly this happened. It seemed to stop his slide. It seemed to begin hers. It certainly energized his supporters. And for a while there, it really did begin to close. I would say by the end of the week, I don't know if you agree with me, Lisa, I felt that she was stabilizing, and that what had become a 1 or 2 point race suddenly now was a 3 or 4 or 5 point race.
Well, and we saw that too with the most recent Fox News poll that I believe now has Clinton up 4, I believe, right?
Yeah.
It just came out. So, I mean, I think you're right in that assessment. And look, I mean, it's already baked in the cake as far as voters' minds of thinking Hillary Clinton did something wrong here. There's a McClatchy poll out last week. 82% of Americans think that she did something illegal or unethical. Those numbers mirror what we saw in July, where Associated Press poll had it 92% Americans thought that she either broke the law or did something wrong here. So a lot of Americans in the country think that she is a crook, and they're heading into election with that mentality. But I do think we saw, you know, as we already discussed, that this, you know, headwinds that Donald Trump had, which seemed to have stabilized. But, you know, look.
But actually, the tightening of the race happened before Director Comey's announcement on the 28th. And, you know, again, the fact that it loosened a little bit more for her and gave her a 4-point comfortable lead, according to the Fox News poll, that happened before Comey's next announcement. So, you know, these may be natural ebbs and flows. I think the biggest factor here for voters in the re-announcement of the email continued investigation is whether or not this was going to be a distraction. And that became so exhausting and daunting for voters that was the issue. It wasn't the specifics of what was in the emails or who had them or where they were stored. It was the fact that this could go on, and maybe now it signals to voters that...
So can we go back to the man at the center of all this, James Comey, and his future? What happens to James Comey? I mean, Attorney General Loretta Lynch weighed in, saying her confidence in Comey and his ability to run the FBI, she maintains that. Do we see something happen?
Well, I think he's got a 10-year appointment, and it's not coterminous with the president, so he's in there. I mean, unless they impeached him, I think he stays in regardless after the new president comes in. So he doesn't have to go anywhere for a number of years.
And if I remember correctly, previous to all of the, you know, October 28th language, Hillary Clinton had said that she would leave him there, that she would welcome that. And I mean, I know a lot's happened since then, my goodness, but I can't imagine that anything would go against, now that this has come out the way it has for her.
Yeah, but again, I don't think she has the power.
I don't know how Donald Trump
it's not a political appointment in the way that a cabinet level position.
Right.
But also, like, what does all this do for the country in the sense you already look at the trust in government is so low, and I worry about post-election and the fact you have the FBI director, which a lot of people, depending on the party, depending on the time, depending on the announcement, believe that he was political to some degree. You have the Department of Justice, which seemed to have tried to obstruct the FBI in the investigative process. You've seen collusion between the State Department, the Clinton campaign, the DOJ, the Clinton campaign, the DOJ, and the State Department and the White House, right? And so there's all this collusion, there's all this corruption. So what does this mean for post-elections and just general sense in government? I really worry about this for the country.
People are still going to hate it.
No, maybe hate it even more. And you're exactly right, because after Comey's announcement on the 28th of October, you started getting these wild leaks from disgruntled FBI people saying, oh, we're going to build a case against Hillary, and Justice Department people saying, no, this investigation is basically over. And you shouldn't have the Justice Department and the FBI playing a political role.
Which is part of the Justice Department, but it just goes to show the internal fissure that's there. And you're absolutely right. One reporter put it that Tuesday, November 8th, it's only a comma. It is not a period.
It's true.
Well, that's just a couple of hours away.
And I love punctuation.
And on Election Day, Fox News Channel is the only place to be from dawn until the wee hours of the next morning. We will have coverage from across America and the very best analysis for you. And we want you to be a part of our election night coverage if you've voted or are getting ready to vote. Post your picture on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram with the hashtag Fox News 2016. You could see it on the air on Election Night from our brand new super fancy studio. Chris, you stopped by, you saw it.
I not only saw it, stopped by, I did our show from there yesterday morning.
Exactly.
All the bells and
and
whistles.
it's going to be fully in action.
Can I just quickly say, I had my 3 grandchildren come. It is the Wallace Playground, and I'm going to make a confession, folks. The billboard, if it doesn't work on election night, it's because James Wallace, my 6-year-old grandson, was playing. He was having a lot of fun in Iowa.
Did anybody swing from the chandelier?
No, but I will tell you one funny thing. So there's this round where the seal is on the floor, and they were dancing around on there, and some people in the control room saw it, and they started, and the kids jumped off it. They thought it had come alive.
All right, that's not a reason to tune in. Watch that new fancy studio in action tomorrow. Also, brand new polling, Fox News polling, showing Hillary Clinton leading Donald Trump by 4 percentage points. What to make of those numbers and what each candidate needs to do with just one more day to go. And major changes to Fox News' electoral scorecard updated just a few moments ago that seemed to favor Donald Trump. We'll break it down for you.
Fox News alert. With just one day to go until the election, the candidates are fanning out across key battleground states, and Hillary Clinton is making 4 stops in 3 states today: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and North Carolina. Donald Trump is hitting 5 states, including the crucial battleground of Florida, where polling shows a very tight race right now. The latest Fox News polling finds Clinton up by 4 points in a 4-way race nationally. That poll taken before Clinton was cleared in the renewed probe into her email server. Meanwhile, both candidates are making their final pitches to voters. Watch.
What's really on the ballot is what kind of country we want for our children and our grandchildren. Don't leave it to chance. Don't leave it to others. Use your voice and your vote.
If we win, well, you know what you can do? Go out and vote tomorrow. That's what you can do. If we win, the corrupt politicians and their donors lose. If they win, the American people lose a big league. This is it, folks. We will never have another opportunity. Not in 4 years, not in 8 years. It'll be over.
All right, let's throw up our Fox News scorecard now. It was updated just a few minutes ago, and it shows Arizona, Iowa, and Utah now have moved into Trump's direction. North Carolina is now a toss-up, and Nevada has moved in Hillary Clinton's direction. Chris Wallace, what do you think is driving this, outside of the fact that it's just late in the game?
Well, when you say this, what? There seems to be a move. Actually, what you're seeing there primarily is that the states that are reliably red or reliably blue are returning to that, and there are a half dozen states that are really up for grabs. And there's no question that Clinton has an easier path to 270 electoral votes, the majority you need, an easier path to 270 than Trump does. Trump's got to do the political equivalent of drawing to an inside straight. He's got to win every state that he has a chance of winning. He's got to win Florida, he's got to win North Carolina, he's got to win Ohio, and then he's got to flip one of those traditionally, and when I say traditionally, 6 elections in a row, Democratic states like Pennsylvania, like Michigan, like Wisconsin, and if he doesn't, he's not going to be president.
Is there anything in the electorate that you can point to right now that would say, yeah, Pennsylvania would go for Donald Trump, which would be a big deal? I
think the key for Trump is, all of these polls are based on models, and models are based on a sense of this is the amount and the number, the percentage of African Americans we expect in the electorate. This is the percentage of whites who don't have college educations we expect. Trump, I think, would need a burst, an unexpected surge of his supporters, and that primarily is non-college educated whites. And if he were to get that, then he could win the presidency. Conversely, you know, with Obama in 2012, more African Americans, more young people voted than the Romney camp thought, and that's why they were surprised.
So what you're saying is the people who really love him would really have to love him a lot, and
a lot of them would have to.
Yeah. So let's pop this up because this is interesting. Some of the Fox News polling showed a level of strong support polling among Trump supporters leading Hillary Clinton. 68% feel very strongly about their candidate. Lisa.
Well, and I think with Donald Trump, I mean, when Donald Trump first got nominated, there was all this talk about sort of the blue collar workers, his appeal to these Rust Belt states. And I think he needs to hope that that materializes. And if you're looking at the polls last week, especially in a state like Michigan, some of that was happening because you have Macomb County, which is a, you know, sort of a blue collar area where he's way overperforming where Republicans typically do. But where he was getting killed is in counties like Oakland County, which is a higher income, higher educated area. But he's been able to close the gap, at least as of last week, late last week in Detroit Free Press poll, by about 4 points. So he's got to hope that he can overperform in these blue collar areas where Republicans don't typically do well, but, you know, still not get killed in these counties like Macomb County, and hope that that materializes. But he's still down in a state like Michigan, so that's tough to do.
I always wonder if it makes a difference to see the candidate. I mean, registering people in person, that's tremendously important, especially for those states that have what I call game day voting, like Pennsylvania. But another poll, if we can stick this up, because Fox News polling really dug deep now, has temperament to serve as president. Trump is still really struggling with this candidate. Why? Has it been her messaging sticking or something, or a combination? Uh-oh, you're making faces at me.
The whole list, or top 10. I think when
we know some things have been said.
When he freestyles, when he ad-libs, people wonder if he'll take that mercurial nature into the Oval Office.
Still, even though he's been on message as of late.
He has, for the most part, been on message. He has not made any major gaffes in the last week and a half. He's let the email story sort of lead the way, and I think he's learned from other parts of the campaign where that was not the case, especially after the DNC and the Gold Star family, where he continued that narrative on his own when he should have let the story die. He seems to have learned from a few of those things, but back to places like Michigan and Pennsylvania, Chris is absolutely right. He has to flip one of those two states. He has to win Florida. He has to win New Hampshire. He has to win North Carolina, which obviously Mitt Romney
and North Carolina,
in
as we just said, in the ratings change, Fox News just changed it to toss-up from lean Democrat. 3 million early voters there. It looks like that favors Hillary Clinton, but they're expecting a big turnout on Election Day that would support Donald Trump.
And I think if that happens to that point, if he does flip Michigan or Pennsylvania, they're going to hear about that in the Mountain West. And, you know, he's also got to win Colorado if he's going to win all of Mitt Romney's states and add the few that he needs to get to 270.
The elusive Rust Belt states, because you go back to the last time a Republican won Pennsylvania, I believe it was 88 the last time. Wisconsin 84, Michigan 88. So, yeah.
Yep.
The elusive states.
All right, well, just because the FBI has given Hillary Clinton the all clear, that hardly means her email problems are over. The top Republican investigator in Congress on what may be in store for Mrs. Clinton in the months ahead, regardless of who wins tomorrow. And despite her campaign advantages, could Hillary Clinton be the real underdog going into Tuesday?
She may be in the clear with FBI Director James Comey, but that doesn't mean Hillary Clinton's email problems are over. Far from it. House Oversight Chairman Jason Chaffetz vowing that he and his fellow Republicans will not let it go. The Utah Republican on Special Report.
No matter who wins or loses this election come Tuesday, Congress is still going to look into it. You have the allegations of the quid pro quo. You have a lot of other things that were happening that the FBI did find out about, including classified information getting into a non-classified setting. This is a mess that only Hillary Clinton created. She's the one, for her own personal convenience, decided to put everybody at risk and cause this mess.
Meantime, a furious Donald Trump telling supporters that FBI agents won't stop going after Clinton as the GOP nominee questions how Comey reached his decision in such a short time.
The investigations into her crimes will go on for a long, long time. The rank and file special agents at the FBI won't let her get away with these terrible crimes. including the deletion of 33,000 emails after receiving a congressional subpoena. Right now, she's being protected by a rigged system. You can't review 650,000 emails in 8 days.
Should Hillary Clinton win the White House, Chris Wallace, what do the weeks and months look like? Do her problems follow her?
Oh, I think clearly they do, but I'm going to say something that may get me kicked off the couch here.
Oh, boy. Let's hear it. Yeah.
I hate this. I think that we've had an awful lot on this. I think it's a legitimate issue. She did create this problem, but the idea that you hear the Republicans threatening new investigations, again, this is the premise. She's the new president. Of the president-elect, you have Republicans talk like John McCain and Richard Burr and Ted Cruz saying we're not going to confirm any of her nominees for the Supreme Court. We're just going to block it.
But you know what
for
Jason
4
Chaffetz
years.
would say as he sits on this couch often, and he tells us, I have a job to do.
I don't care. There are other things to do. America's got other problems, and I just think that if she's the next president, even if she isn't, let's get on with life. It's not like the email issue hasn't been litigated, and the Clinton Foundation. We're going back to Whitewater in the 1990s, which went nowhere. Let's address people's problems, the things that affect their daily lives.
So you've heard what one of our Fox News contributors told me on Fox Report. Doug Schoen said that he thinks that it would end up in a constitutional crisis if she were to end up in the White House and these things were still going on. Now, he said that comment previous to James Comey saying now that there's still not a way forward against her legally. But it's interesting that it could lead to at least a lot of political constipation. Let's put it that way, where we just kind of get stuck in a place.
And we're going to go there anyway, because, I mean, this is a gridlock country, and there are going to be plenty of issues where Republicans are going to, again, all of this, I want to restate, is the premise that she wins. She may not win. He may win. And the flip side is that. He wins, and then you see Democrats prosecuting cases against him, whether it's legal or political. I sound like Rodney King. Can't we all just get along? Can't we all just try to do something for the country?
I agree with you, and I think this is how a lot of people feel, is they're so sick of this. And that's why politicians, particularly Congress, have such low ratings.
Right.
Because people out there, and
the
reason
do too, sadly.
you've seen the personalities emerge in this election is because people are very much hurting, and they want Congress to address their problems. But I will say this, there is something that smells so fishy about the foundation that, if you're talking about people who are concentrating power and selling favors, what are they going to do when they hold the ultimate power? And I think, we cannot let that accountability go. There has to be a rational place. There has to be a track where we sit and actually get stuff done.
Lisa? Well, and I agree with Kennedy. I don't think this should necessarily be let go, though, because even just in the past couple of days, we found out that she had, or at least what's reported, a maid print off, classified information, $1 million donation from Qatar that was never reported to the State Department. And Congress is supposed to be an investigative body. That is Congress's job. That is the House Oversight's job. And further, what about the fact that you have a Secretary of State who clearly broke government protocol? And what about future Secretary of States breaking government protocol? And I think there needs to be some corrections made.
I think Lisa would like to be in the audience where we're going, so that she could maybe ask a question or two. But that won't be the case. This is a Fox News alert, something that we told you that we were watching. This is on the University of Pittsburgh's campus there in Pennsylvania. We're going to watch Hillary Clinton now on the stump.
March for civil rights.
So we are watching Hillary Clinton on the campus at the University of Pittsburgh right now, and you can see sometimes it happens with satellite images and live view images where they'll take those digital hits. It's audio, it's visual, and so we're going to step away from that because you really couldn't hear the complete sentences there. We'll be in and out of both candidates and their stump speeches throughout the day as they are in and out of battleground states. We promise to do that for you and bring you those live events as they happen. Real quickly, this was a more typical stump speech, Chris Wallace, and I think that is the course of the day that we'll see, right? Any surprises expected, do you think?
No. I mean, you don't want surprises today. You want to make your best argument, and at this point, you're really not trying to change people's minds. You're trying to mobilize your voters to actually get out and vote, those who haven't already.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. We've had a lot of discussions about ground game. And I guess, you know, right now, this is the ground game. It's the candidate's ground game. But do you think it's still a traditional situation where Donald Trump may get hurt by the fact that in the last few days he spent money getting a ground game together?
You can't do it in days. You need months, even sometimes years. I mean, there's so many key elements to this. You've got to identify your voters. You've got to have data, and he has almost no data to identify who are the persuadable voters. And you've got to identify who has gone out and voted, who hasn't gone out and voted. You have to have a neighbor, not a stranger, somebody in the neighborhood who makes a contact with that voter, tries to maybe even says, can I drive you to the polls? Yeah. That's the kind of micro-targeting that needs to go on, and I think Trump is way behind.
I know the RNC is saying that it has really tried to throw a bigger net in terms of that. It's done 12 million door knocks compared to about 11.5 in the last cycle in 2012. But it's impossible to say how many of those are really dedicated solely to Donald Trump and not farther down ticket. Okay, we'll be right back. Stay close.
Welcome back. This is Outnumbered on the all-important week. It is the Monday before Election Day, which is tomorrow.
Election Eve.
Election Day Eve. All right, very good. Despite Hillary Clinton's campaign advantages, her running mate calls her the underdog in this race. Tim Kaine was asked just about that in an interview. He said a few years ago, he told Hillary this.
No matter what the polls say and no matter what you see in an editorial, consider yourself the underdog. You're trying to do something that's never been done. If it had been easy for a woman to be president of this country, we would have had a woman president of the country.
All right, that is despite the fact that Hillary Clinton has more campaign money than Donald Trump, a more organized ground game, and higher profile surrogates. Chris Wallace, those three things that I just listed off there, how important are they? The ground game, the money, the people like Jay-Z and Beyonce.
It's huge. I would put Jay-Z and Beyonce a little bit lower than ground game and money, but it all. What?
You love Bay. Go on.
Oh my! You know, I've always enjoyed doing this show until this moment. But it doesn't matter enormously, and this is nonsense. I mean, it's a useful thing always to say, act like you're the underdog. Trump has said that too. Act like you're behind and go, you know, through the finish line or whatever. She is I still think a distinct favorite, and the whole woman thing, very interesting. Aren't you a little surprised that it hasn't been more of an issue in this campaign? I don't think it's been an issue at all that she'd be the first woman president.
No,
I think if anything, it's only been to her benefit, not certainly to her detriment.
No, and I think that that has to do with the evolution of the conversation and the necessity of the issues at hand. The ground game, how important is that?
Well, you know, again, I think that when you are going to lean on a machine like the RNC and you have not set up your own ground game, it gets complicated because everybody is leaning on that machine down ticket. So I don't know how effective that could be, what the efficacy is for the candidate. But I will say that when you've beaten out 16 other people, it's sometimes hard to wrap your mind around buying something that you think you might never use. Yeah. And wanting to break with traditionality, with tradition rather, I think is part of his argument for being an outsider.
Okay, but back to the point that Tim Kaine was making, that she is the underdog.
Well, because they hope that gets people out to vote.
Isn't that a little absurd for him to claim that Hillary Clinton, you know, she is the figurehead, she is the establishment? Can you really call her the underdog?
And when you just look at the money spent in the Hillary Clinton campaign versus Donald Trump and the money that they have on hand, it's unbelievable. But he says this has been his strategy himself all along. He said, I tell myself I'm the underdog until they call me the winner. I don't know. I'm not here to criticize that strategy. I don't think it's a bad one.
That's a little defeatist, don't you think?
Well, no, and I think if Donald Trump was to win tomorrow, what is going to be remarkable about it is the fact that he did it almost primarily on his own.
As an outsider.
But yeah, Hillary Clinton is not the underdog. She has every advantage you could possibly have in this election. She has the president of the United States who is out there as a surrogate hitting the campaign trail. She's got Jay-Z, she's got Beyonce. No, but I mean, she's absolutely...
Is that Katy Perry?
No, I'm just kidding. But no, she absolutely is not the... That's just laughable. Come on.
And a lot of money.
Come on.
Thank you, Citizens United. She should be writing them a handwritten note every day. Donald Trump slamming Hillary Clinton for bringing out celebrities to appear with her at the campaign rallies. Does this show her weakness as a candidate, or can star power tip the scales in this all-important race? Stay with us.
Donald Trump is hammering Hillary Clinton for leaning on celebrities in the final stretch of the campaign. calling it demeaning to the political process. Last night, she appeared with pro basketball player LeBron James at a rally in Ohio. This following recent appearances with Jay-Z, Beyonce, Jennifer Lopez, John Bon Jovi, Stevie Wonder, and Katy Perry. And Bruce Springsteen has just been added to the lineup of guests for Hillary Clinton's rally tonight in Philadelphia. She'll also be appearing with top surrogates, including President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama, along with her husband, Bill Clinton, and daughter, Chelsea. Trump says he does not need celebrities to draw crowds at his rallies. So, Kennedy, I've got an important question everybody is dying to ask.
Yes.
Does Hillary Clinton actually listen to Jay-Z?
No, she's not that cool. Good Lord, no. She's a cyborg. No, and it's funny because when Jay-Z and Beyonce appear with the president, it has an enhancing effect because when they're together on stage, they magnify each other's energy, and it adds to the president's aura. When Hillary Clinton is on stage with Jay-Z and Beyonce, it has a diminishing effect for her. And you're like, oh, Grandma, can you just scoot to the left so we can watch the fun people perform for a little bit? So, yeah, no, these are... What? These are not natural barmaids.
So
Would you ever see that?
My favorite shot on Twitter today was the height differential between her and LeBron. That was just
He's
huge.
so tall.
Yeah, but can I just say something? There's a specific reason, and it has nothing to do with music, that they campaign in those places with those people. African Americans are underperforming in the early voting in Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland. Do you think it helps to get African Americans more enthused about Hillary Clinton to be campaigning with LeBron James? African Americans are underperforming in early voting in Philadelphia. Do you think it helps to have Beyonce and Jay-Z there for her to campaign with them? So, I mean, it's not just we want to have stars there. It's that they want people that appeal to the specific segments of the electorate that they need, and they hope to energize.
Yes, and if Jay-Z and Beyonce were running for president and vice president, I'm sure many of the people in the audience would turn out and vote. They're just not passionate about Hillary Clinton.
And Sandra, how much do you think this helps her with millennials too? Because to Chris's point, yes, using LeBron James, using Jay-Z to try to activate the African Americans who aren't turning out to the same degree.
Let's face it, a lot of that generation doesn't do their own research when it comes to who they're going to vote for, so they need to be told who to vote for, and that's exactly what they're doing by rolling out these celebrities, right? But unfortunately, they're not really telling them what their candidate stands for, what they're going to do if they're elected into office.
I don't know.
No policy discussion.
I look at this, I do see it as an opportunity to reach people, maybe, but I also see it as a little pandering. I mean, not everybody who's a person of color is going to be at that concert. Like that's never
happened in politics before?
All right, we're going to leave it there. More Outnumbered in just a minute.